Hello. I'm going to belabor a topic that's well worth belaboring. I've been informed that I'm no expert on this matter, and so that I should consult experts before I say anything. But for me, it's just common sense. And experts that make their money on preying on vulnerable people are the wrong ones to consult. But I don't think my operating system needs to be updated on what is essentially common sense. And it seems like there are portions of liberal America where common sense has gone on holiday, and they're allowing themselves to be manipulated by a small number of people that are essentially, you know, lacking any kind of sense of self identity. And they're trying to undermine those who have a sense of identity, who know who they are. And, we talk about words like inclusive. Like, what's that mean? What does inclusive mean? Well, many people think that we should be inclusive, but what's really going on is not anyone asking us to be, mainstream, to include others and be broad-minded and open-minded about everything. What's happening is, really going on is, they're trying to include mainstream into their way of thinking. That is such a nightmare. And the only people, of course, that they can pull the wool over the eyes are those who are the most vulnerable. The young children, the treasures of our society, working early on to confuse them, and through the undermining of our language. Now you look at Putin, his, what is it called, the strategic military operation, and war. The word war is forbidden in his language. Well, that's controlling the narrative of his war on Ukraine. And talk about inclusive. He's trying to include Ukraine into Russia. Same way that there's certain odd groups in America that try and include mainstream America into their way of thinking, and they're doing it through language. Now they say they want to be included in mainstream, but it's the other way around. That's what's really going on. And they're doing it through infringing on the freedom of speech of every individual, you and me and everyone else. There's like, I don't know how many, 32 gender terms in our language now that are being forced upon many people that have to earn a living in the teaching careers, medical professions, and so forth by adhering to these pronouns, these predications of individuals that really demand that they're predicated in such a way. Now, surfers have their own language, and hot rodders have theirs, and I'm living in the country where mud hopping and dune buggies and stuff is really a big thing, and they have their own way of talking. Hunters have their language, but none of these groups, no matter which, who you're talking about, try and force their language on lay people that don't know anything about what they're up to. Surfers could give a crap if you talk about how you talk about them, talk about them, Grammy or whatnot. So there's a group of people, much like Putin, demanding that, we follow along with an agenda to change our vocabulary to accord with the way they like to be spoken of. So, spoken about. So, what's behind it all? What's behind it is, well, the people that are speaking that language and using that language as demanded of them, basically is being slowly included in their group. That's what's happening. And that's controlling the narrative of our thinking, just like Russia is doing with strategic military operation amongst its people. So, so what is the point of this? Why is this going on? It's often pointed out, well, these groups, these people have been around for thousands of years. Well, that's true. You look at the history of LGBTQ or whatever it is, and it's been around forever. Time of, before the Greeks and Plato and Socrates and all of these. But they didn't have an agenda. And it's the agenda that's so painful to our modern culture that didn't exist in ancient time. People could care less what somebody else did. Whoever wanted to partner up, well, partner up. Partner up with a sheep or a dog or a same sex or whatever you want to partner up with. Nobody cared. And those that did so, they didn't care what other people did. But suddenly we have a very different situation where mainstream is trying to be included in this oddball society. And adults can think for themselves, but what about kids that have some transgender come to their school to read to them, sit them on their lap and tell them what a wonderful lifestyle they have? Come on. You have to check with a doctor, talk to a psychologist to find out if this is right behavior or not. How insane is that? People talk about being inclusive. Well, where do you want to draw the line? What choice does a child have about that? He has to go to school, and then you have these people, if you can say, if that's the right word, probably that even is not applicable anymore because they have a special term that's that applies to them, and that the school probably has to use. But whoever it is going into the schools and giving kids books that they wonder what the heck is going on. It confuses them from an early age. What is that all about? That wasn't existing in ancient times. And that's the whole problem. That's why so many of us, reject this whole LGBTQ plus crap. Because that's what it is. And to tell someone like myself that you have to go to talk to a good psychologist or a psychoanalyst to understand the gender thing better, that's completely BS. Anybody with common sense, this is just common sense, knows better than that. And people that try and impose their lifestyle on other people, that's one thing. But to do it with children or people that are confused about their own identity is really nonsense, and it's demonic and very harmful. And it's happening a lot through language. And so people should really pay attention to their P's and Q's and not follow the demands. What about freedom of speech? Why should anybody be forced, or a medical profession or a hospital be forced to include so many names that it wastes a ton of papers on pleasing everybody with their identities? Why not just call them Dear One or something like that? Subsume them all under a wonderful name, Dear One. You're one of these 32, so we'll just call you Dear One. What's wrong with that? And when a kid raises his hand in class and you know that he's one of the 32, you just say, "Dear one, what do you want to know?" That's a simple solution. Why make things so confusing? But it's the demands, private bathrooms and so forth in the schools for them. Who's paying for it? You want to know how this whole problem could be solved right away? If these operations and all of this money that's spent on hormones and operations those people who were getting those, who wanted those operations, or who were forced to have them, had the parents were forced to have by the court to have their child have such and such an operation. If the people that were having these operations or having these hormone treatments had to pay for them, then all of a sudden everybody would be straight. That's the truth of the matter. But as long as that everybody, taxpayers are paying for it, who cares? But things would suddenly change if taxpayers and insurance companies weren't responsible for paying these elective surgeries, something you elect to do because you think it's necessary. It wouldn't seem so necessary if you had to pay for it. That's the truth of the matter.